All right, I'll do the intro here. We are in Studio Noble in Bozeman on Main Street, 133 East Main, with Kevin Noble, who travels the globe in search of iconic images that he translates into his style of art. You can see some of it around us. It's beautiful. You focus on the Yellowstone area, at least for the time being.
Neighbors, yeah.
Yep.
You create art pieces that strip away the visual noise by using a minimalist approach, and you share this studio space with your wife, who does acrylic art under
Kimby
Art.
Yep.
Because her name's Kimby.
And her pieces are beautiful.
They are great. Yeah,
Yes.
we'll cut some of those into the interview here. But Kevin, tell me about your origin story as a photographer, as an artist.
That's a good question. I ask myself that all the time, actually. But I do remember a class in high school where, way back when you had to develop film. And there's something about developing that stuck with me. And so it goes back to that. But I think more importantly, too, is I'm coming from a big family. I have 4 sisters and a brother. And we grew up in Philadelphia. And my parents would load us up in a van and drive us to Yellowstone every summer. And you can imagine what that looks like, right? There's no seatbelts back there.
Yeah.
And, it's just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And so since that time, I don't know, 6, 8 years old, I've had a fascination with Yellowstone. And even after all these years, I get excited to go to the park. So I think it started way back there when I was a kid. And the memories back then, it's probably my earliest memories as a kid was Yellowstone.
Wow.
And all the adventures there. So that's probably
so
part of the
much to
reason.
see.
Yeah, part of the reason I do what I do.
There's a nostalgic element.
There
to it
is,
for you.
and for me, I don't know if it's. I'm sure some psychiatrists could really delve into this, but there's some peace for me in Yellowstone.
Okay.
And maybe that's comes from bringing up my family, going there with my family when I was younger. So I think it's a magical place, filled with wonder, especially in the winter. Everyone goes there in the summer mostly, right? And you got to deal with the crowds and everything that goes along with that. But the winter in Yellowstone, I think, is just magical.
It is. It's stunning.
Yeah.
So did you develop your style and then bring it to the Montana snow, or did the snow inspire your style?
I think I've always been a minimalist. I don't like noise anywhere in my life. And so I try to strip away whatever's not useful.
Right.
And in my pieces, I say that what's not in my piece is almost as important as what's in my piece. Meaning, I got to make sure I don't capture things that I don't want in the piece, because I think that visually it can just be so noisy and it doesn't give the feel or the vibe that I want in one of my pieces. So I really want my pieces to be filled with wonder.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do when there's so much noise in the background.
It seems like you're good at capturing that feeling that I got when I first moved to Montana in the 90s. I told my mom, I was like, I feel like I'm in a snow globe when I'm on my runs. And so it is. You capture that silence. You capture the quiet and the magic of winter and in those quiet moments.
It's funny.
You can't hear cars coming either, but whatever.
Yeah, right. And it's weird. Someone pointed out to me that I go to the winter in Yellowstone to get peace.
Yeah.
And there's not a colder place around. There's not a more desolate, isolated place around, and that's where I find peace. And it's odd, but it's true.
Well, that's a wonderful place.
Yeah.
Another thing that's not in your photographs is tourists.
Yeah.
How are you able to avoid all the looky-loos that are always in Yellowstone?
One.
Shoot some.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. It's difficult in the summer, but again, I don't do too much shooting in the summer. It's mostly in the winter. So I'm in the park maybe 75 days a year, and most of those days are in the winter. And most of those days are I try to go when it's in extreme. Like it was that cold spell last February is 40 degrees below zero.
Right.
That's when I wanted to go. And everyone's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, I'm going to the Yellowstone." I'm like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Because this is extreme."
-40. Yeah.
And you see things in the extremes that you don't see every day, and especially you don't see in the summertime, because there are a lot of tourists and whatnot. So even when there's a blizzard, right? I'm packing up the day before to go through the blizzard to get to Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna find something unusual that you don't see in most pieces. So.
How are you getting in there midwinter?
Yeah, so you got to go through the northern entrance by Gardner.
Okay.
So that one road is always open from
Yeah.
Gardner to
Mammoth.
Silvergate.
Okay.
And so the northern range is open all winter long. So I spent a lot of time there.
Do you snowmobile?
No, you're driving, and then
Okay.
you can get off the beaten path and snowshoe.
Nice.
But in the winter, particularly in the northern range, there's a bunch of wolves and wolf watchers up there. So, and I'm pretty familiar and friendly with them.
You got friendly with wolves. I like it. Yeah. How close are you getting to these animals in the park?
It depends. You know, I got all sorts of lenses, as you can imagine. And usually the reality of it is when you're viewing wolves in Yellowstone, you're doing it through a scope or a long lens.
Right.
Yeah.
They're a mile away normally, but
Oh, wow.
sometimes you get lucky and they're close. So last 2 Aprils ago, when the park just opened on the west side for spring, April 15th, I went down to west and stayed the night, and it snowed 8 inches. And got up and drove into the park, and at Madison Junction, I turned left, and right in front of me were 3 wolves just in the middle of the road, and which was fantastic. No one was
Yeah.
around, and it's different than seeing them a mile away.
Yeah.
And so I got ahead of them, and they're coming down the hill coming down the road towards Terrace Springs. And it was a white, a black, and a dark gray. And the black and the dark gray were young, and they saw me. And they went into the woods around 100 yards. And I'm kneeling next to my van, taking shots. And the white keeps coming straight at me. And she's older and mature, not afraid. She sees me. And at 40 yards, I reached up to get in my van, and I locked myself out. I had.
Oh God, nightmare.
I know. I left the passenger side in a hurry with my camera, and I'm kneeling next to my driver's side, so I could get up and go around back to my passenger side to get in. But she was so close. I said, you know, there's no pups around, there's no carcass around. Just stay still and see what she does. And she ended up just trotting right past me,
Wow.
maybe 6 feet from me.
Wow.
And so
I mean, she knew you were there. But
she
you
knew I
just-
was there,
Yeah.
and you know the
You
flip
posed
side.
no threat.
No, and the flip side to that is she shouldn't let me get so close, right?
No.
But in Yellowstone, they get used to humans, so you could make a case like, oh, well, that's not so cool, but it was cool.
Yeah.
It has
Who
to
even
be.
cares
It was
what
cool.
those people say? Yeah, it's crazy.
And when you see them that close, you realize how big they are.
Sure.
They're not like a dog. Like in your scope or
Huge.
your long lens, and you're looking at them from a mile away. It's really hard to gauge.
Yeah.
They
I feel like
just
they're
look a
like
dog.
this tall.
Yeah.
They're huge. Yeah.
Yeah, long legs and thick all around.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
it was really a cool experience.
So if you had had a ham sandwich in your pocket at this point,
Right. Throw
You'd
it at
be a
them
dead
and
man.
run.
No, I don't think so. I
Not
you know,
with a grizzly, but
yeah,
maybe
a grizzly.
with a wolf.
A grizzly scare me.
Absolutely.
Wolves don't really scare me.
Yeah.
They just want to be left alone unless you're a threat or you startle them maybe.
Right.
Even when you startle them, they want to run away. But if there's pups around or carcass, then it's a different story.
Hence all the guys wearing the wolf shirts, lone wolf.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't get near me.
We all aspire to be that in life.
yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah.
you're spending hours and hours out there, I assume by yourself, in an unforgiving environment, bored out of your mind. What do you tell me what's going on in your head? Are you listening to podcasts? I hope you're caught up on ours.
Right. Yeah. I'm doing all that. And sometimes my wife comes with me and drives, which is great.
Okay.
And that story I just told you about the white wolf, the week before that, she and I were in Lamar Valley for 8 days. And I'm not even sure I pressed the shutter button once. And that's a 12-hour day, you know, 6 to 6 in the winter. And
Moving around, or are you in one place?
Moving around.
Okay.
And normally the way it works is you're driving the northern range and you're either looking for wolves that you can see yourself, or you're looking for someone who's seen a wolf and have them in their scope or their sight. So, and so, you know, sometimes you're out and you're snowshoeing. That's cool too. But the reality is you're most of the time when you see a wolf, someone has already seen them.
Yeah.
So
And are you at peace when you're doing that? Is that your happy place?
I think so. And it's strange, again, because you're out there by yourself and you have all this time to think, and that's the last thing I want to do is think. You want to stay busy, and
Yeah.
but it can be beautiful even when you don't see anything, right? I was interviewed a couple of years ago, and they say, well, first question was, why wildlife photography? And I said, I'm not a wildlife photographer. And as soon as the words left my mouth, I look around and like, oh hell!
Turns out
it might be that way.
Such a cliche.
Yeah, I know, but I do think of it differently than a wildlife photographer. Nothing against the person who does that, but I think they're capturing maybe not beauty, but they're capturing a time and a place, and more of a National Geographic
Right.
type of thing. I'm really trying to create beauty in the pieces I see.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a small distinction there, but
It's nice that the animals never pose, right?
Yeah.
Every animal shot is more of what is it called? A candid.
Yeah.
It's a candid shot.
but some of them do. Like the
giving
one
you the-
behind you there looks like it's posing. It's a black wolf that's just laying down right in front of me,
that
right?
is back in black.
Back in black, and so that does happen sometimes. But you're right. It's usually candid, which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are gigantic prints. What kind of printer are you using? Kinko's?
Yeah.
You have a giant Epson in the back?
No, I actually I've learned that people do things really well, and you shouldn't try to do it all yourself. So I probably have the best printer in the country in Los Angeles.
Nice.
And they know my style, and they keep my whites consistent throughout all my pieces. And I know that sounds like an easy thing to do, keep the whites consistent, but it's not. And so I don't really touch my images either. I let them sharpen and do what they have to do, and I'll do a final crop. But they're experts at what they do, and we print. We do print large, so it's. I had a lady come in and said, "I love your pieces, Kevin, but they're not big enough."
Woo.
I know. And I said,
What kind of wall do you have?
yeah, so we used to have a large piece, and now we have an extra large piece.
Okay.
Just mural size.
Yeah,
This
which is 6 feet by 8 feet with the frame.
Got it. That'd be my kitchen or perhaps living room.
Yeah, so big houses up here.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think there's something different about big pieces on the wall. I have a small house here in Bozeman,
Yeah.
and we have big art everywhere. And I think it comes from the opposite of what you see every day on your phone. You're on Instagram, and it's, I don't know what it is, 3.5 inches
Right.
square or whatever. And it feels different than that. So
Nice.
I
I
think,
like that I don't have to use my reading glasses to see everything. So
Yeah,
that's
right?
good. And my progressive's on right now.
It's hard to miss. And I know the frames are a part of the artwork, right? And
Yes.
we're not sourcing these from Michael's. This
No,
is
and I
real deal.
I think a lot of artists forget that, or they don't understand quite yet the importance of that. But it's part of the art piece. And in fact, I won't sell my pieces without my frame. And basically, and I've been asked to do that, and I think I've lost one client because of that. But I basically said, I don't trust you to put a nice frame on my piece. So.
If I want like a really ornate gold frame, are you going to do that, or you
will
stick
not
with
do
it?
that.
Okay.
Gross.
Yeah,
Gross.
yeah, you got two choices, black or white.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that.
I do have two different frame styles now, but they're both made of oak, and they're both substantial, and they're all handmade here in Bozeman. And they cost a little bit more, but I think it's worth it. You got to finish your artwork strong, or you're just giving up at the 5-yard line. So
Nice. Looking at the art in this room, there's something that I noticed. I said it looks like the sparkle on snow, and you told me it was diamond dust.
Yes.
So this is a new series. I'm assuming it's not blood diamonds.
no, it's not
Okay.
blood diamonds. No, responsibly sourced.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we just released this series on Friday a few days ago. And I've been working on it for quite a while, and it came from the day, I don't know if you can see the bison behind me, but that day it was 40 degrees below zero in the park, and it was, which is my personal record, 40 below. And what happens when it gets that cold, and it needs to be sunny, it needs to be still, the water vapor in the air crystallizes. and it really looks like little tiny diamonds everywhere.
Yeah,
And
it's trippy.
It's very rare, but when you see it, it's very magical. And that day, I'm like, I have to share that with people. How do I share that? And because you can't really, I've tried to capture it with my cameras, and you can't really capture it with the camera. You can capture it with the video because things are moving, things are shimmering. But with a camera, a still camera, you can't really capture that. So I thought about it, then I realized, and I remembered that Andy Warhol used to use a crushed glass and diamond particles and applied it as a finishing layer to his screen print in some of his series.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so I did a little research, and we played around with it for a while, and I think we got the magic potion right now. So
Are you drizzling it on, or more of a spray?
So the short story is I get my prints printed the same way, and then we code them, and then I send them to a screen printer that I've been working with, and he screen prints liquid acrylic on top, and then we sprinkle crushed glass on it. And this is in LA still. And so they get shipped up to me, and then I take a couple carats of diamond particles. And just to be true to the process, you really can't tell the difference between the diamond particles and the glass. But we hand place diamond particles in the piece, and then we frame it after that. So I think it's magical. I think that it is when you're walking around the room, you almost feel like the piece is living with you because it's shimmering and it's moving a little bit. And the way we did it, I don't think we lost too much detail because a lot of my pieces, or a lot of my clients that come to me, really like my detail, my sharpness of my pieces. And there's some concern about that, but I think it looks fabulous.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
I do too.
Yeah.
Everyone needs a little glamour, a little sparkle.
I think it would be a cool way to propose.
Yeah.
Instead of a ring.
Right. Hey, now we're talking.
Diamond dusted photo that's 6 feet by 8 feet wide.
That may be okay with half the population. I'm not sure
Totally.
the other half.
You proposed with a Nalgene bottle.
I
so
did.
You're really getting
there
up
you
your
go.
game there.
On a hike.
Eh,
Nalgene bottle had
Idlewild.
a ring attached to it.
He asked me to get his water, and I was like, why am I getting your water? Like, he was 10 feet away from it. I'm like, jerk. So I'm like going to get his water, kind of mad that he like was telling me to go get his stuff. And then I picked it up, and I was like, wait, what's this? And I was like, oh, right.
That's sweet.
Isn't it?
Yes.
It was not a big
It's an effort, though.
stone, I'll tell you. It's about the size of one of the
the
specs
diamond particles?
Exactly.
you're using on your-
You're a
on
PA.
your art.
It's fine.
Yeah.
I know you came to being a professional photographer late in life.
Yep.
Do you feel any urgency? And I guess explain that a little bit to our listeners so they understand who you are, I
Right.
think, as an artist.
Yeah. It's important, but it's difficult to talk about.
Okay.
So, but I'll get through it the best I can. So, 7-8 years ago, I sold my business. I was in a different profession for my first half of my life. I owned a small technology company and grew it from something that wasn't really tech to something that in the end we had 200 people. And
Great.
I turned 50 years old and said, I'd like to do what I want to do now or do something different. And right after that happened, our 18-year-old son passed away on the mountain in Big Sky. And so our whole life changed. And, for a while I was very mad and decided, I'm not going to get back in the rat race again. I am going to do what I want to do and something more meaningful. And so I turned to Yellowstone. And like I say, when I go there to find peace, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And a lot of people do that. I think there's I can't explain it, but I think that visiting Yellowstone is
Cathartic.
healing.
Yeah.
And there's some magical qualities there. And so
There's no place like it.
there's no place like it. And it's so big, you can see different things about it, the canyons and the valleys and the rivers and also and the animals. And so there's something for everybody. And I think that people who visit Yellowstone, when they leave, they're happier people. And I think that says a lot about visiting, nature and the healing process there. So
Yeah.
so that's so I decided to do what I want to do, and this is what I've always wanted to do. And my wife's the same. So, the tragic event led us to rethink everything in life. And she paints to find peace. And she's a fantastic artist. And it's interesting because her art's different than mine, right? I tell her that if I could paint, I would, but I can barely write my name, And so I got to pick up a camera.
Yeah.
Where she used to paint with oil painting, very detailed landscapes. And the longer she's painted, the more abstract she's getting. So now she uses these palette knives with very colorful palettes. And so that's kind of her thing, and that's how she finds some peace.
Art can be very healing.
Yep.
But I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
I can't imagine. I think in Hamilton they say it the best. It's unimaginable. But
it is.
I read that article, and I liked how the author kind of explained what you had gone through and what came out of it. A lot of people say that their tragedy was a gift or whatever, and it was like, it's not a gift.
It's not a gift.
But it's something that can give you a new perspective.
I think it gives you clarity.
Yeah.
Right. You realize what's important and what's not.
Yeah.
And, I think about his name is Tanner. And, the years when we had Tanner here, if I'd miss a putt, 3-foot putt, I get all mad and thinking to myself, how silly was that to get mad about something so inconsequential? Mm-hmm. And so you really get clarity on what's important and what's not. And, people, worrying about stupid stuff is really a waste of time. You should love your loved ones really hard and really forget about all the noise. So
I agree. Yeah, I've gone through a cancer journey myself, and I think it's shifted how I see everything.
Shifted's a good word.
Yeah, it has shifted it. And I mean, he hasn't been through it, so we have little moments with our lives or our kid or something like that where they're like, I just want to stay out this one extra hour or do this one extra thing, and I'm like, just let him do it.
Yeah.
Well, one of us has to be sensible.
I know, but no, there's things where I'm just like, who cares?
Yeah.
And all of this,
it's
finite.
And all these rules.
Yeah.
I think when you get shifted, like you said, these silly rules we live by sometimes are really silly. So break some rules is what I say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of that comes through in your art, in your photographs. And so kudos on
they literally
sort
shine.
of manifesting all of that and using your art as a lens.
Thank you.
I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of your work.
Thanks. We had, I'm out, like I said, out in the park 75 days a year. And I don't just do Yellowstone. I Grand Tetons, really the American West. I love my wild horses. And I have a new wild horse series coming up. And,
it's incredible.
And so, I'm shooting, a third of the year maybe. And I usually get 6 to 8 shots a year. So I'm very discerning on what I show and what I put on the wall. If I'm not over the top excited about it, I just put it in the bucket. I think too many people put too much stuff out there.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about, grading someone on their worst piece. So I'm very aware of that concept, and I try to make sure that I'm not showing something I'm not super proud of.
No, yeah. I know. I want Joe to take some of the podcasts out when we were first beginning and learning how to do stuff. I'm like, take it out. I don't want somebody to click on our podcast and think this was it.
Yeah.
This was the best work
I don't
we
know.
could
It's
do.
nice that they can see the progression.
Yeah,
Nobody's
true,
listening to all of them at once. Who has that?
We
amount
are
of time?
still mediocre. That'll never change.
Yeah.
Listening public. All right. So I'm glad you're selective.
Yeah.
Right. We're done with the questions. We're moving on now to one of my dumb little games. This is called Title Shift.
I usually don't like
all
them.
of your
Okay.
all of your pieces have titles
Yes.
that you have carefully selected. There's Back in Black we talked about earlier. Picture of a beautiful geyser erupting. You call that Wondrous.
Yes.
An elk looking skyward, New Hope. And a bison with snow on its face, The Mask. Okay, all of these beautiful titles. I have come up with some titles and I want you to tell me what you'd have to shoot to make that title work.
All right, let's do it.
All right?
Yeah.
And Michelle can chime in as well. The first one, resolute. What would you shoot?
Something with the bison.
That would be bison.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think bison are just magnificent. They're unafraid of anything, right? I mean, even grizzly bears come up to bison. Bison, like, no big deal, right? A pack of wolves, if it's big enough, will stir some emotion with a bison. But basically, they're fearless.
Yeah.
So I'd say something with a bison.
All right.
I'd put
Bison
a
would be
badger. I'd say a badger. Like that time
Michelle
it kept
loves
chasing
badgers.
it. I love badgers, but there's that story in Yellowstone where it kept chasing the wolf out of its hole, and finally it like ate the wolf's cubs. Just kind of like, well, you came back,
Yeah.
so I ate your kids.
Badgers
right.
are badass.
I like it. That was resolute. The next one, turtleneck. 2 words.
Oh my goodness.
Turtleneck.
Yeah, Joe's gonna- Just thinking of shooting myself now, like, as I age.
I don't know.
I'm
I
aging
think
Michelle.
you could probably get something with Old Faithful with that. I think.
Okay.
My shot at Old Faithful Wondrous is different than what you normally see, and I try to shoot things like that where you know what it is, but you're not sure if it's what
Yeah.
it is. Like
the symmetry on that one is unusual.
Yeah, and usually see Old Faithful, it's a big mess. It's usually at the peak of the eruption, and it's messy everywhere. And I don't typically like messy, so I shot it just a few seconds into the eruption, where it still was pretty tight.
A lot of steam.
Yeah, a lot of steam, and it's still tight, and it's not so messy. So, but when it is messy,
Turtleneck.
maybe turtleneck.
Turtleneck.
Okay.
Or you could have like something giving birth.
That's what I thought.
first.
Maybe a bison calf being born head first.
Yeah, I try to delete those images.
Yeah.
I see that kind of stuff all
It's
the
not
time.
art, Joe.
I'm
Is that
kinda-
in the bucket?
I'm kind of queasy. No.
Understood. Understood.
All right. How about this? I don't have a lot of these. Salty dog. What would that be?
Something with the wolf, right? I mean, they're
I think so.
so canine-like.
A wolf near the paint
salty.
pits, tots,
Yeah, you can do that.
tots.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
there's all kinds of minerals
In
there.
fact, an old black wolf, and there's some black wolves that do make it to an age where they're old enough to get gray.
Nice.
And you can visually see that they're older.
Yeah, but because they're gray,
Ah.
they literally turn gray.
And
Yeah.
skinny.
Like you and at one time.
I don't know what
Yeah.
you're talking about.
Yeah.
I use just for men.
He
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, salty dog. In fact, I may steal that.
All right.
Hey.
It's
All right.
yours if you want it.
Okay.
It's fine. We
Give me
won't
credit
TM
when
it.
people ask you in your
Okay.
next interview. All right. How about apple teeny?
Appletini. That sounds good, though.
I know. I was like, God, I just salivated.
Yeah. Is it too early?
It's noon somewhere. I don't. Let me think. Appletini. I mean, Appletini could also be a geyser.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. With the colorful geysers,
Yeah,
close
the-
to-
How are we going to see colors in your photographs?
I know.
Maybe this is the start.
I get that.
Okay.
I get that asked a lot. And again, I think it goes back to my minimalism.
Yeah.
I think color can be a distraction, just like too much noise is a distraction. I know that seems odd, and there's some great color photographers out there. So it's just not my thing.
You got your style.
Yeah, I got my style.
That's what it is. Actually, the diamond dust
Adds a
brings
color.
a little color in
In
there,
fact, yeah, we just installed one somewhere, and when we looked at it, once it was up there, it was the color that reflected off was green. So there's something in the spectrum there that in that house was kind of reflected that green prism, which was interesting.
That is cool.
Catching a sheen.
Yeah.
I thought maybe Appletini could be distant shot of West Yellowstone, where it's very clear that it's a super small town, so it's no New York City, right? Instead of the Big Apple Appletini.
That was terrible.
It's very dumb.
I'm so glad that's not your thing.
Moving right along. Anchor
going
baby.
with your
The
geyser.
last one is anchor baby.
Anchor baby.
Again, something with birth, probably like attached by the umbilical cord.
Yeah. The baby bison are really cool to watch
Yeah.
in the spring. And they're called red dogs because they're almost, redhead. right?
Totally.
And so they're fun because their legs are so long and they're hopping around after a couple of days. They literally don't know what to do, I think, because they're literally bouncing around, and it's
Wow.
adorable. And this year, I don't know if you heard, but there's a white bison, baby bison born.
No.
It's like an albino.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be really good luck. And I just read something there. I think they're doing a some kind of Native American
Ceremony
ceremony in West Yellowstone for
because of it.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
How
and
cool.
I
didn't know
haven't
that.
been able to see it. It was in the Lamar Valley, and it hasn't been seen for a few weeks. So I don't know if what happened there.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll have to read more about that.
Yeah,
I have no
maybe
idea.
good luck for a wolf too.
Yeah, yeah. The wolves will spot anything that's different, right? They'll challenge a herd and see if there's a hurt bison or baby.
Oh, wow.
So maybe they see something different color and
We may need to protect that
That
bison.
one's sick.
Yeah.
I'll adopt it. It's fine.
yeah. I'll
It can
tell you.
live somewhere.
It reminds me. This is a fascinating fact that I'll ask you. Do you know how fast elk can run?
No.
I mean, let's call it 35.
Listen, he's
Bang,
just guessing.
35. He got it. How
Did you
fast
know
can
that?
How
You just
about?
guessed 35.
I may have watched a video on Reddit recently
Okay.
that showed different animals
Okay.
and how fast they
Okay.
could run.
And
Let
how
me guess,
how
guys.
fast can a wolf run?
45.
35.
Also 35.
How fast can a grizzly run?
30.
35.
35.
How fast can a bison run?
I'm not.
I'll
is-
say it if you don't.
Is it
come on. Is
35?
it also 35?
And what does that say? The natural selection, that the predators will only take the prey that are either hurt or injured,
Yeah.
or old and need to be eliminated, or young, unfortunately. But basically, if you're a healthy elk, you will not get taken by a predator.
I'm gonna get
It'll
eaten
just
in Yellowstone.
basically takes away the yeah.
We
Right.
don't.
I don't
we
run
can't run
35.
35.
Got
No.
about 5 mph.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
I know.
I didn't realize that. That's the coolest. Thank you for letting me know that.
That's interesting. All right. I think that's the interview. Tell
Okay.
people how they can buy or find or look at your work.
Yeah, I think the best way, if you can, come to the studio on Main Street.
Okay.
And we have odd hours, but mainly from Wednesday through Sunday. And we're open a little bit later than other places. And because I think you need to stand in front of the piece to really get the feeling of the size. And of course, the new Diamond Dust series. It's great if you can come in person. But you can start on my website, kevinnoble.photography.com. I know that's a long thing to type out. And from there, you get to choose a couple of things. And we have, we try to make it easy for people to see our art in their space. So we have a cool little app. So if you know you have a wall that you're putting your art on, you can take a photo of the wall and the dimension of the wall, how wide it is, and then send it to us, and we'll place our art in your house, basically, so you can kind of get a feel for what it looks like in your house. So,
Neat.
And
that
in
always
any
helps.
kind of frame that you want it to be.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Purple. No. Oak. Black or white, guys.
Black or white.
That's all you get.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
all
it's
you
the
need.
best-
As it should be.
Yeah, I
right?
see the white one over there. I was wondering what the white looked like, but I like the white one.
Yeah.
It's geyser.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's walk around and look at some of this.
Okay, cool.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
for
thank
having
you
us.
very
Thanks
much.
for being on the
Thanks for coming.
podcast.